Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of this symposium, and we will resume our panel discussion of the second part, Muslim-Christian Dialogue and Peacebuilding. I am Yilma from Ethiopia Interfaith Forum for Development Dialogue and Action, IFDA. I call upon our today's discussant and presenters. Please join me to welcome Father Wasim Salman, who will reflect on the theme, and also welcome Dr. Joseph Mutei. With no further ado, I would like to briefly introduce our presenter, Professor Salman. Professor Father Salman serves as a president of Pontifical Institute for Arabic and Islamic Studies in Rome and professor of contemporary Arab Islamic thoughts. He is also a consultant to the Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue, editor of Islamo-Christiania, and an internationally respected scholar who works as significant advanced Christian-Muslim dialogue and mutual understanding. Professor Salman, we are honored to have you with us. Please take the floor. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. So I will speak on the document of on human fraternity. So the document on human fraternity represents the culmination of the Catholic Church dialogue with Islam, insofar as it addresses themes that unite Christians and Muslims and outlines the Church's path for the decades to come. Pope Francis' pontificate was marked by synodality, openness to the world, and a strong commitment to interreligious dialogue. Only a few months after his election, he published the apostolic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, in which he emphasized the importance of fostering fraternal relationships with Muslims. Building upon the teachings of the Second Vatican Council's Declaration Nostra Aetate, he reaffirmed the values shared by Christians and Muslims. First, the faith of Abraham, belief in the one merciful God, the reality of the final judgment, and respect for Jesus and Mary, who hold a significant place in both traditions. So Francis consistently highlighted the need to educate and prepare people for genuine dialogue with Muslims. In 2015, I was just in the assembly of PISAI. We celebrated our 50 year anniversary in Rome, because my institute was founded in 1926 in Tunisia, and then 1964 it was transferred to Rome. So first Pontifical Institute for Islamic Studies. And the Pope talked to us at that time. He explained that the Institute mission is not merely to analyze religion from a socio-political perspective, but to form individuals capable of engaging in authentic dialogue rooted in respect for the dignity and rights of others. Culture and education, therefore, become essential instruments for promoting sincere encounter while avoiding superficial syncretism that obscures religious differences rather than deepening mutual understanding. Education, said the Pope, also serves as a foundation for peace by countering ignorance, extremism, and fundamentalism. During his journey to Bahrain, 2022, Francis further emphasized the role of prayer in dialogue, describing it as a means of overcoming selfishness and opening oneself to the gift of freedom. The Pope rejected the theory of clash of civilizations, as we know. And it was a problem for the Pope. Imam Al-Tayyib too speaks about it often. And the Pope advocated a fraternal encounter with the Muslim world based on openness, mutual respect, and serious study. He encouraged learning the Arabic language and gaining a deeper understanding of Islam and its values of peace and mercy. A crucial first step in this process is distinguishing Islam as a religion from ideological distortions that misuse sacred texts to justify violence and terrorism. For this reason, Francis sought dialogue with credible religious leaders rather with political actors whose interests often hinder genuine engagement between believers. And that's really always my work, because I work on contemporary Arab and Muslim thoughts. The first thing I do to distinguish Islam from terrorism, so Islam from radicalism. So it is necessary to explain that to our student, to the new generation. And I think it is a part of the future of the Muslim-Christian dialogue. Since the beginning of his pontificate, the Vatican has developed a particular close relationship with Al-Azhar, the most prestigious institution in Sunni Islam, though his friendship with Grand Imam Ahmad Al-Tayyib, Pope Francis, found a partner committed to peaceful coexistence between Christians and Muslims. Their encounter profoundly influenced the Pope and contributed to the vision later expressed in Fratelli Tutti, the encyclical of Pope Francis. And Francis acknowledged himself, I quote the Pope, I was inspired by Grand Imam Al-Tayyib in recalling that God created all human beings equal in dignity, rights, and responsibilities, calling them to live together as brothers and sisters. First time I see a Pope who quotes an Imam in his encyclical. A significant milestones in Christian-Muslim relations occurred during the apostolic journey to the United Arab Emirates on 4th February 2019. On that occasion, Pope Francis and Grand Imam Ahmad Al-Tayyib signed the document on human fraternity for world peace and living together. The visit and the signing of the document represented the fruit of years of renewed institutional and personal relations between the Catholic Church and Al-Azhar. Human fraternity document can be regarded as the culmination of Pope Francis' dialogue with Islam. It identifies the values that unite Christians and Muslims and offers a roadmap for future cooperation. Rather than viewing Islam as an adversary, the document presents it as a religious tradition with which Christians share many moral and spiritual values, and with which they can collaborate in the pursuit of peace, justice, and faith in the one God. The text also addresses the ethical crisis of the modern world, warning that scientific and technological progress has not always been accompanied by moral and spiritual growth. The document provides a clear vision of the role of religion in peace building, grounding in a shared belief in God. It calls believers to practice mutual respect and actively pursue dialogue and cooperation. It affirms that authentic religious teachings encourage peace, human fraternity, mutual understanding, justice, and harmonious coexistence. The document invites people of faith to work together in building a culture of respect and solidarity while recognizing the divine bond that unites humanity. The document insists, I quote, religion must never incite war, hateful attitudes, hostility, and extremism, nor must they incite violence or the shedding of blood. These tragic realities are the consequences of a deviation from religious teaching. We call upon all concerns to stop using religion to incite hatred, violence, extremism, and blind fanaticism, and to refrain from using the name of God to justify acts of murder, exile, terrorism, and oppression. The document encourages governments, educational institutions, intellectuals, and religious leaders to adopt a culture of dialogue. It is a key word inside the document, culture of dialogue, as a way of life against a culture of war, culture of violence, so on. So we heard many other expressions in the last decades. Dialogue, mutual cooperation, reciprocal understanding are presented as essential principles for building harmony among people, cultures, and nations. Through such engagement, humanity can rediscover the values of peace, justice, goodness, beauty, fraternity, and coexistence. Pope Francis' apostolic journey to Iraq in 2021 further demonstrated his commitment to building bridges with Shiite Islam. His historic meeting with the Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani highlighted the importance of peaceful coexistence among Christians, Shiite Muslims, and Sunni Muslims. In a country scarred by years of war, sectarian conflict, and the atrocities committed by ISIS, the Pope stressed the hatred and violence are betrayals of religion rather than expressions of authentic faith. During his visit to Muslim-majority countries, including Indonesia, Pope Francis consistently encouraged cooperation between Christians and Muslims in confronting moral, economic, and social challenges. The 2024 Istiqlal Joint Declaration promoting religious harmony for the good of humanity continued this effort by addressing dehumanization, violence, and the misuse of religion. Pope Francis deserves considerable credit for restoring attention to the authentic role of religion as a force for promoting peace and safeguarding human dignity. In his vision, interreligious dialogue is not merely a diplomatic strategy, but a practical and spiritual instrument for resolving conflicts and strengthening the bonds of the one human family. This vision was echoed by Pope Leo XIV, because I spoke only on Pope Francis, but I think Pope Francis had at least 12 years just to express his engagement with Islam. Pope Leo has time. I think he's young, and he will be very engaged, I'm sure, with Islam, because in all his trips, as we see, he speaks on Islam. So one word, one sentence, but he is interested. But he is waiting to organize well his vision for the future, I think, because we are in very difficult time. So peace, wars. So he has many questions. So Pope Leo, during his last year, we were together at the assembly for the celebration of Nostra Aetate, and dialogue is not a tactic or tool, but a way of life, a journey of the heart that transforms everyone involved, the one who listened and one who speaks. We walk this journey not by abandoning our own faith, but by standing firmly within it. For authentic dialogue begins not in compromise, but in conviction, in deep roots of our own belief that gives us strength to reach out to others in love. Compromising one's own faith is not interreligious dialogue. The effective interreligious dialogue of today requires strong faith, coining with collective collaboration to guide future generations toward mutual respect and a shared recognition of the divine grace that connected us all as brothers and sisters. So to finish, Pope Francis and Imam Al-Tayyib transformed Christian-Muslim dialogue. I think they had this idea, and from a peripheral aspect into a central instrument of peace building and human fraternity. Milestones such as the Document of Human Fraternity and Istiqlal Joint Declaration illustrate that cooperation between Christians and Muslims can move beyond theological discussion and address the pressing moral, social, and humanitarian challenges facing the contemporary world. In an age marked by religious extremism, political polarization, and increasing social fragmentation, we consistently rejected narratives of conflict between civilizations and instead propose a culture of encounter grounded in justice, compassion, and solidarity. We remind both Christians and Muslims that religion is not a source of division, but a force for reconciliation, peace, and promotion of the common good. Authentic interreligious dialogue does not require compromising one's religious identity. The future, that's our topic, I think. The future of Christian-Muslim relations, therefore, depends not only on theological understanding, but also on sustained collaboration in promoting peace, defending human dignity, protecting religious freedom, and fostering a culture of fraternity. In this shared mission, Christians and Muslims can offer a powerful witness that faith in God is inseparable from the pursuit of justice, mercy, peaceful coexistence among all peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Father, for such insightful reflection. Now I call on Dr. Mutei, who is serving as a campus director for the Nairobi campus at St. Paul's University in Kenya. He is a respected scholar whose research and publication focus on Christian-Muslim dialogue, interfaith dialogue, peace building, radicalization, and theological education. And he has contributed extensively to dialogue initiative in Kenya and across Africa. Dr. Mutei, you have 10 minutes to reflect.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate Dr. Wagi, together with the organizers, for this opportunity to share a few thoughts, and also appreciate Salman's paper. I have listened, but I had also taken time to read it so that eventually I can give this response. I must appreciate that this paper is based on a very, very important subject and a very timely one. So Salman's paper traces Pope Francis's interreligious commitment as a continuous line from Evangelii Gaudium through the Nostra Aetate inheritance into pedagogical initiatives such as the Pontifical Institute for Arab and Islamic Studies. And finally, he comes into the institutional high point of the pontificate, which was the personal friendship with Grand Imam Mohamed Al-Sayyid and the 2019 document on human fraternity for world peace and living together that was signed in Abu Dhabi, like he has indicated. This paper reads very well, this document, as the practical distillation of this friendship, situates it within the UN's subsequent proclamation of an International Day of Human Fraternity, and extends the narrative outward to Iraq, the 2021 meeting with Grand Ayatollah al-Sistani, Bahrain, and Indonesia in the 2024 Istiqlal Declaration. It closes by carrying the vision forward into the Pope Leo's address at the 16th anniversary of Nostra Aetate, reading continuity rather than rupture across the transition between the pontificates. It's actually a wonderful read. It's not a very long paper. When I got it, I got two papers, and you compare the two, and I thought there was a lot of insights that were coming out of this paper. So this paper grounds an otherwise abstract theme of interreligious dialogue into a concrete, well-documented friendship between Francis and Al-Tayyib, which gives the narrative a casual engine rather than leaving dialogue as a free-floating value. There is need for universities and religious institutions of higher learning to work towards the practicalization of the interfaith discourses from, through the centers of institutes or institutes of Christian-Muslim relations like we have across the globe, and through such initiatives like praxis alongside theoretization, so that at the end of the day, we do not just have great theories in conferences, but we have practical ways of ensuring that those things are actually taken down to the ground and the initiatives are felt on the ground. The move from Sunni Islam in Al-Azhar to Shia Islam al-Sistani is the genuine strength of this particular approach and this particular paper, even highlighting that it resists the common flattening of the Muslim world into the Sunni institutional expression alone. Many times it is very easy for you to just assume that Islam, once you've dealt with Sunni, then you have dealt with every other Muslim. But this paper indicates that Pope Francis would go beyond that and engage even with the others. So there is need to work not only with the main religious denominations or particular sects, but also to onboard the smaller ones, which are very, very significant others when it comes to this dialogue. So it's another way of saying, yes, it is important that we address the big institutions, the big religious groups, but it is also important that we also, inclusively bring on board the others. For grounding the full citizenship language as distinct from minority rights language correctly identifies one of the more consequential legal conceptual moves in the Human Fraternity document, with direct relevance to the context that we are dealing with within matters of interfaith. Then towards the end, extending the narrative to Leo XIV is a useful editorial choice. It tests whether the paper is subscribing on only Pope Francis's personal project or an institutional trajectory that survives succession, so that at the end of the day, it is not just something that one Pope was doing, but bringing Pope Leo towards the end is another way towards thinking about continuity, and so that these engagements and projects do not end with an individual, but they actually become institutionalized. Having raised those matters, then I would like to just engage a few areas in terms of where I feel we could do better. Nevertheless, you quickly note that the paper reads as an appreciative chronicle of Francis's initiatives, rather than analysis of their contestation. Of course, you know that with every big project, there are also negatives or people who poke holes into what was done. For example, there are those that have felt that the signing and even the documentation of this particular document was too elitist, for instance, and it did not go down to the people. And there are always many sides, and those sides were not brought out by this paper in terms of saying, what did the others discuss pertaining to this particular paper? One then would ask, does the paper's silence on contestation reflect the sources consulted or a deliberate choice to present the dialogue project in its most favorable light? Because there are always those questions. The other question is the state adjacency question. the closeness with most of the institutions that have been mentioned in this paper with the governments of the day, the states of the day, almost sounding as if they are state-sponsored projects. Now, while that is actually a good thing, the problem is how would it have stood if the governments did not support those particular initiatives? And the paper would be stronger if it asked what each state party gained politically from hosting or endorsing these events alongside what the churches and mosques would gain religiously. Because I also understand, after engaging in many of these dialogues, that many of those state-run initiatives also would have some limitations and freedom, and I think it will be good for us to have had that part of the story. Allow me to, therefore, conclude by asking two questions. Do we have any evidence of the fact that beyond the signature, that the document has actually altered practice, curricula, public rhetorics, and religious minorities? I love it, and I have read through the document, and the question that I raised earlier continues, not just to the presenter, but to all of us. At what point do we practicalize the documents that we come up with and make them felt? Maybe we are hearing this document about human fraternity for the first time. The UN has even declared a date that we will be celebrating every year. But the question is, how many of us know about it, and what plans do we have about it? Has it trickled down? That is the question that I have. And then the last question for me is, where do non-elite or non-institutional Muslim voices come in? The Sufi orders, the Salafi-leaning scholars who reject dialogue or principle, women's religious scholarship, Shia communities beyond a single meeting with al-Sistani. Where do they fit into a narrative built almost entirely around heads of institutions? In other words, where are the voices of the minority on this trajectory? As stated earlier, in the spirit of dialogue and inclusivity, there should be a concerted effort to widen the tables of dialogue and accommodate those whose populace may not match the larger global players for a peaceful and futuristic world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mutei. He raised some question for all of us, and I would give one person to reflect on. Then, if you want to say something, maybe you will conclude with that reflection.
Thank you. Just a question to Father Salman. Why it took many centuries for the church to be able to reach the so-called Vatican II document that was forged or signed in the 1960s, despite the fact that, as presented yesterday by Reverend Waji and Dr. Michael Nazir Ali, that there are countless encounters of interfaith relations between Islam and Christianity or Christendom, starting, in fact, since the time of the Prophet, when the Christians were actually the ones who gave succor to the early days of the Prophet and the Sahaba. And these were replicated in various historical periods. For instance, this was not mentioned yesterday, but say in the time of Caliph Umar, when he went to Jerusalem, the great patriarch received him and wanted to ask him if he would like to pray. inside the Holy Sepulchre. But the Caliph refused because he didn't want that the next generations of Muslims would use his presence in the church as a precedence for possible use of that sacred ground in Christianity. And there were several instances, even if you take, for instance, the encounter between Salahuddin Al-Ayyubi and Richard the Lionheart, which also expressed positive encounters between two warring armies of the Crusades and the Muslim modes, to suggest that there had been, in Islamic tradition, consistent doctrinal or the pockets of historical fluidity in terms of encounters, but the doctrinal positions of Islam had been consistent in terms of reaching out to the Christians, like the famous verse, Ta'alu ila kalimatis sawa, right? Including Ud'u ila sabilika bil hikmah. So the doctrinal position of Islam has not changed. Although there were historical fluctuations in the Crusade and others. But in the case of the church, it took many years for a doctrinal positions on interfaith relations before, say, the Vatican Council was able to come up with that document. And now, since then, there has been subsequent efforts on the church as if to cover the missing periods of lull in Christian-Muslim relations. Now there have been a number of initiatives, and we're happy about this, that the church had, realized the need to come with more engagement on interfaith dialogue. That's my point, Father Salman. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And I think for the church, why we arrived so late to this document, Nostra Aetate, I think many theologians in the past work on interreligious relations, but there was no official document in the church. That's right. It was late. I agree with that. Maybe the church is too much Western, European. They don't think about our problems maybe in other countries. Sometimes they don't care because they don't understand what happens in other in the Middle East. But I am sure that the document Nostra Aetate was written thanks to the bishop and the priests of the Middle East. The intention was not to talk about Islam. It was only to talk about Judaism. And the bishop of the Middle East said, no, we have Islam in our countries and we want to live in peace with them. So all this work of the Eastern Church was necessary to change the mentality of the Western Church. So I think the experience, we focus too much on the West, on our problem with Judaism, not with Islam, because Europe, now we have Muslims in Europe, but in the past, Muslims were not so many. So I think that's a question. But I'm sure many theologians in the past were like us. They wanted dialogue with other religions, with Islam, and with other people. So inclusivism in the church was much before the document. So the document is just an official declaration. But many Christians, many theologians, many bishops wanted really in the past. And we can read many theologians like Karl Rahner, Henri de Lubac, and many others. Really, they wrote books, interesting books about that. So I think that's the problem. So I'm happy that the Eastern Church exists and we work together to dialogue with Islam. And we are very happy I'm Syrian, I'm not Roman, so I'm Syrian. So I'm very proud that my church decided this dialogue at first. Thank you.
I think we have taken enough time of our panel, and we will end up here. Please give a round of applause to our distinguished speaker and discussant. And we wish you a fruitful discussion and panel today. Thank you so much.